Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back to more Warhammer 40k lore, where today we are having a look at a rather unique individual. In fact, the only individual within the entirety of the Tyranid hive fleet. This creature is the only one within all of the Hivemind to be capable of actual autonomy, to have its own thoughts, its own experiences, and its own plans carried over from body to body as it is endlessly respawned and recreated whenever the hive fleet runs into particularly stiff resistance. It is, of course, the Swarmlord. But first, a word from our kick-ass sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. The game everyone's heard of. An action-packed strategy title with hundreds of difficult and dangerous tasks. A lengthy campaign mode to get you started with levels and resources before delving into the dungeons, where you will have to overcome a variety of challenges to defeat the Ice Golem, the Dragon, the Fire Knight, and the Spider, each one requiring their own unique approach as they ramp up in difficulty over the course of 25 levels. And you can get started right now with the link in the description or by scanning the code on the screen, while I tell you about a couple of awesome champions, like Elder Skarg. A member of the Barbarians faction, he has been with me almost since the start, and a damn lucky early pull he is, as he specializes in dealing with enemy legendary champions. Not only does he take less damage from their attacks, he also reflects a part of it right back to them. Add on great control with AoE Fear, and a solid triple hit combo that also burns and steals the enemy's buffs, and this champion can deal handily with any enemy legendaries. And then there is this adorable slug pig lizard thing, Vergumkar. A big old bundle of joy he is, as he specializes in healing and supporting your team through the toughest of content. He stunts, he buffs, and he dispels enemy-provoked debuffs, which would otherwise force your champions to attack the toughest enemies. I'm currently enjoying the brand new Hydra content, where I'm trying to establish a team able to take on this late-game enemy and gain access to the incredible rewards that it has to offer. But it is no easy task, as each and every one of the Hydra's head comes with a wide variety of special rules and abilities. Make no mistake, it will be the ultimate challenge for your hand-picked team of champions. And right now, there is a brand new rotation of the Hydra's heads available, along with a whole host of brand new rewarding events that will be running every single day. This is the best time to get started with Raid Shadow Legends, and by clicking my link or scanning the QR code, you will get a bunch of free resources and an awesome mystery champion. You will find all of these rewards right here in your inbox. And now, back to the Swarmlord. As I mentioned, this four-armed behemoth is exceedingly unique in the fact that it is an actual, genuine individual with the capability to think and decide for itself as to what it is going to do to deal with all of those pesky, fleshy things that seemingly refuse to become food. Very impertinent, I know. And I need to stress this level of autonomy as well, because there are of course some other Tyranid organisms that are granted a degree of independence, like for example the Hive Tyrants. The Hive Tyrants, as we probably all know by now, act as de facto battlefield commanders, that's the way they're usually described, for the Tyranid hive fleet. But this does not mean that they have true autonomy or an ability to truly think for themselves on a grander scale. It's more along the lines of, do I throw 120 term against this objective, or do I throw 220 term against this objective? And alternatively, if it's a particularly tricky hive tyrant, it might think to itself, what if I go around the objective? But that's about the extent of it. The Hive Tyrant will have some leeway in how to achieve the objective, with aforementioned application of maneuvers, for example, or different applications of force, sure, but the objective itself remains constant, and usually fairly limited in nature, as the Hive Tyrant is a node for the immediate control of the Tyranid army around him. He is a regimental commander rather than an army corps commander, to put it like that, as the higher level command is taken care of by the Hivemind. It's the strategic genius that determines that you need to sweep around this wide flank, or this city needs to be seized, or that hill needs to be taken, and then those orders are delegated to the Hive Tyrant. Meanwhile, the Swarmlord, well, he is a warlord. I'm sorry, I couldn't resist. In his own right, in that he is actually able to take battlefield command, which is even to a degree independent from that of the Hivemind. In effect, he is the second in command of the Tyranid Hive fleets, and notice Hive fleets, by the way, as there is only one Swarmlord within our galaxy that serves all of the various disparate fleets. We'll get back to why in a moment, but the reason why this is so important, why the Swarmlord's autonomy is so important, is that he has the ability to change the larger picture. Let's say that the Hive Tyrant was ordered to occupy that hill. Very well, the hill is an immediate strategic objective. It gives the local Imperial Guard, for example, oversight over a large valley from which they can direct effective and lethal artillery fire against the incoming Tyranid Hive hordes. Very well, it is absolutely something that needs to be seized, but the Imperial Guard commander is not a complete idiot either, and has fortified the living hell out of that hunk of rock. It's got Lehman Russes dug in on the slopes, it's got Hydra flak batteries, it has thousands of Imperial Guardsmen and pre-entrenched mortar positions. It is a nut and a half to crack open, and will cost the Tyranid Hive fleet enormous amounts of resources and little old Tyranid lives to finally destroy, if they are even able, as of course, once the Imperial Commander notices that his favorite vantage point is getting assaulted by hordes of biomorphed weapons, he's likely to redirect a frightening quantity of that effective artillery fire on defending his own positions. A Hive Tyrant would have no real way to deal with this. It has simply been given an objective to take the hill, and so, by the Hivemind, it is going to take that goddamn hill, no matter the cost. Whereas a Swarmlord might see that the hill isn't the real objective here. It's the nearby city, or it's the valley, getting through the valley into the open plains beyond, or the artillery positions. The hill is merely the thing that allows these other things to be effective. Alright? And so the Swarmlord gathers up a bunch of lesser organisms and begins sending them in skirmishy waves up the hill in slowly mounting intensity. He's going to take some casualties, but these are only skirmishing organisms. A few hundred termagants here and there charging, then retreating, firing a little bit, sniping at enemy lines, such on. Eventually, as the pressure mounts, the Imperial Guard commander, feeling a bit paranoid, will begin redirecting some of that artillery support to cover his own hill, realizing that it is a crucial strategic position. Now the Swarmlord ups the ante yet further, until he has managed to get the majority of the enemy's artillery to hammer loose at his scattered and organized skirmishers, who are taking a beating, sure, but they're only losing hundreds rather than thousands or tens of thousands. Whilst the main thrust of the Tyranid army is chilling nearby, ready to rush through that valley and into the open plains, or readying to overwhelm the outer lines of the enemy's defenses around the city, getting in so close that the enemy's artillery will no longer be effective. and once he's judged that enough guns are focused on the hill, the storm rush on the real objective will be commenced. There are many other ways he could do this. Maybe gargoyles could be sent around the flanks to harass the artillery. Maybe fast-moving organisms could be sent on wide flanking marches. Maybe raveners could be dispatched to undermine the artillery park, or create tunnels in the city for infiltrators. Maybe lictors could be used to kill the artillery spotters, etc., etc. But again, a hive tyrant does not have the authority to do any of this. And of course, the Hivemind can think of a lot of this as well, and most of the time, that is what the Hivemind does. It throws the 100,000 little gaunts at the objective, watches them all get horribly slaughtered, then goes, "Alright, that didn't quite work out to plan. Plan B, we need to deal with the guns first." The Swarmlord simply skips the A phase of that plan and heads directly to B. And he can do this because he is an actual, genuine individual with a great deal of battlefield experience. It is difficult to determine exactly how much, since we do not know if the Swarmlord is a truly unique entity in the entirety of the Tyranid species, or if he is simply the second in command, again, of the Hive fleet dispatched to deal with our galaxy. We'd enter into a bit of a hypothetical study there as to exactly what the Tyranids are and how vast they are. Is the Tyranid fleet attacking the 41st millennium the entirety of their race? Is it a splinter of a much greater Tyranid whole? Personally, I prefer that second one because I am a big fan of the theory kind of hinted at in the Tharos book of the Horus Heresy, suggesting that the Tyranids are out there in the void, and then the Pharos got blown open and they were like, "Oh, that's a beacon. That's a beacon we recognize. Head towards that beacon," suggesting again that they might be a creation of the Old Ones, perhaps specifically designed to wipe all life out in the galaxy so as to take care of the Cthans and the Necrons. Maybe it's even a vast moat, a huge swath of the galaxy that is in between the Cthans and the Necrons, and the Old Ones chilling on the completely different side of the universe. It's possible. It's also entirely possible that the Tyranids were simply just drifting through the void and finally saw a great big light indicating, well, life and civilization, and went, dinner. Either way works. But before we wander too far from the point here, let us assume, for the sake of argument, that the Swarmlord is, in fact, the only one of its kind, a genuine individual within the Tyranid Hivemind. He clearly has a great deal of previous combat experience, so we know that there has been life outside of the 40k galaxy. At the very least, there has been another galaxy in which the Swarmlord has fought. We know this because during the Battle of Macragge, the Swarmlord was actually able to engage on an equal playing field with Marnus Calgar, employing every tactic he could think of directly out of the Codex Astartes along with his own improvisations, and yet the Swarmlord was able to meet these tactics, counter them, and even develop his own countermeasures to prevent further such tactics from being effective. This indicates that the Swarmlord is a genius-level tactician, as even Marnus Calgar... right... I'm sorry, I forget my recent lore. Not Marnus Calgar, I mean, of course, that slave boy that stole Marnus Calgar's name and has been impersonating him ever since. Stupid Arch. I can't forget the official canon now, can we? Anywho, the Swarmlord met and countered every tactic deployed by Tacitan, the knockoff, and defeated them, even managing to reach Tacitan and almost kill him in the attempt to decapitate the Ultramarines. Tacitan only survived by throwing his honor guard into the way of the rampaging monster and seeing them be cut to pieces, including the bodyguard commander Aloysius. And that wasn't even the height of the Swarmlord's rampages on Macragge, as he would go on to lead the assault against the Polar Fortress, which was currently tearing the guts out of the Tyranid hive fleet in orbit. It was garrisoned by the entirety of the Ultramarines' 1st Company, chock full of Terminator elites, and the Swarmlord, along with its army, cleaned out the entire damned place, leaving no survivors. On either side, that was a bit of a flaw in the plan right there, as the Swarmlord too was killed during the battle. The Imperium figured that this was a particularly vile bioorganism, but now that it was dead, yippee-ki-yay! Nightmare over. Yeah, except for the fact that, again, the Swarmlord is able to be resurrected, as the Hivemind can somehow copy the mind of the Swarmlord and re-download his consciousness into a new body. Now, this raises a whole lot of questions as to why it doesn't do this multiple times. I'm just saying, if one Swarmlord is good, surely 12 would be better. Well, there's probably some kind of biological programming at play here, since there are now plentiful indications the Tyranids were an artificially created species rather than a product of natural evolution. Which actually pisses me off a little bit. I way preferred the Tyranids when they were this hyper-advanced, rapidly evolving race, because it made them scarier. You kill them once, they come back specifically designed to deal with the weapon that killed them. That's cool, that's frightening, but now, well, the Tyranids have remained unchanging for like, what, 4 editions plus or something? So much for hyper-evolution, but details. Unfortunately for our hero, the Swarmlord, the battle for Macragge was the height of its dominance. Because despite being massive, unbelievably difficult to kill, unfathomably fast, and absolutely redonkulously lethal, the Swarmlord thereafter was turned into, well, the second rung on the hero's ladder. A bit like the Avatar. Yes, let's get that joke out of the way too, shall we? I resisted it during the Avatar, because I figured the Avatar doesn't get enough love, and he's a really goddamn cool war monster. He's a massive walking molten iron statue inhabited by a god. And yet everybody and their grandmother has beaten the crap out of him barehanded these days. Sure, Fulgrim crushing the life out of the Avatar with his bare hands was pretty gosh darn retarded, but he was halfway on his way to becoming a demon prince at the time, so I'll give that a pass. Lorgar, however, defeating an Avatar like it was nothing? Oh, come on. Lorgar couldn't fight his way out of a cum-stained paper bag half the time. He is the weakest of all the Primarchs, not just because he shit his fighting, because he doesn't want to be good at fighting. An Avatar should be more than a match for Lorgar, but Aaron Dembski-Bowden got his panties in a twist, as he tends to do, because people were calling out his kindergarten-level understanding of psychology when it comes to Lorgar and the First Heretic, and so he wrote Aurelion, where Lorgar's personality and capabilities flip 180 degrees, and suddenly he kicks the shit out of burning god monsters, whilst feeling sorry for them at the same time. And unfortunately, the Swarmlord has fallen prey to much the same use and abuse as the Avatar. As ever since the battle for Macragge, he's primarily served as an XP puppet for various characters that need to make a name for themselves. For example, the next time he ran into Takita. During the Battle of Ica 4, the Ultramarines Chapter Master quite handily defeated the Swarmlord. Next up, he got his ass kicked by Dante of the Blood Angels, which I can actually buy. If any Chapter Master should be able to kill a Swarmlord, it would probably be Chapter Master Dante. And then he got his ass beat by yet another Ultramarine. These days, the Swarmlord's supposed badassery all happens well off-screen. GW and their goddamn fetishization of power armor. Anywho, before we get too depressed here, let's return to actually viewing the Swarmlord as the kick-ass monster that he is by describing all of the things that make him awesome. Beginning, of course, with the fact that he is the Hive Fleet's Fire Brigade. It's fix-it-all genius, tactician, and strategic mastermind. The Hivemind has got a lot on its mind, I've used that word too many times now and it's getting awkward, organizing a galactic invasion. It cannot be everywhere at once. And there's only so much attention it can pay to any single engagement. This is why the Hive Fleet, despite all of its many tricksy attempts, can often become rather predictable. As with the example with the Hill, the Hivemind would simply continue to hurl troops at it until it either runs out of Tyranids or finally gets enough feedback through the Hivemind news network that this shit ain't working, boss. And remember as well, this is not one battle for the Hivemind. This is a galactic-scale invasion. That hill, that precise scenario, is probably being played out on 100 planets at the same time, whilst the Hivemind is organizing the logistical system inside of the ships, making sure that new armies are being spawned, making sure that replacement bionutrients are being taken on board, making sure that the various splinter fleets are organizing their efforts to destroy as much of the Imperium as possible, making sure that they don't run out of supply easily. This is in turn done by identifying vulnerable worlds, which requires the Hivemind to process God only knows how many tens of thousands of reports from Tyranid infiltrator and gene-stealer cults scattered throughout the entirety of the galaxy. Busy bee, and no doubt about it. Now, I'm sure that the Hivemind, a species conscience, functions on a level far beyond that of the human mind could possibly even dream of, yet nevertheless, stress is the real killer, after all, and is very useful to be able to hand out some control here and there, to delegate a little bit to the Swarmlord. And it is also only called forth when the Hivemind meets a particularly difficult obstacle, because usually throwing mud at the wall is all the Tyranid Hive Fleet requires. Yes, the world might have that ridiculously heavily fortified hill. They might have batteries and batteries of artillery shredding the Tyranid hordes, but 9 times out of 10, the Tyranids are going to have a hell of a lot more hormagaunts than the enemy will even be able to dream of having shells. And so bloody attrition will win the day yet again. The fact that the Swarmlord has been called forth at all shows just how tough of a nut the 41st millennium actually is, and how damnably stubborn the food in this part of the universe can be. And with thousands upon thousands of years of battle experience, the Swarmlord is just the general to begin turning the tide of battle in the Tyranids' favor once more. And in the rare scenario where the Swarmlord's tactical and strategic brilliance is still not enough to finish off the stubborn sausage resting so delectably in front of the Hivemind's ever-gaping maw, the sheer bulk, violence, and ferocity of the Swarmlord is likely to see that morsel well devoured. Not only is it tremendously heavily armored, covered from head to toe in tough exoskeletal plating, it is also armed with 4 bone swords, though not the regular Tyranid kinds. These are, if anything, even more special. These weaponized organisms bound forever to the Swarmlord are specially enhanced with a mysterious extragalactical crystalline substance. This makes them virtually indestructible, allowing the Hive Tyrant in fact to use them as shields. He swings them so rapidly and in such intricate patterns all around his body with his 4 arms as to be able to intercept incoming weapons fire. Las cannons, battle cannon shots, anything and everything. The Swarmlord can bat it all away, speaking to just how awfully tough those things have to be. And of course, even if a warhead or 2 sneak their way past his snaking swords, the Swarmlord himself is quite the chewy little cookie and can take a colossal amount of punishment before even getting slowed down. And seeing as the horrible thing is waving around 4 bone swords capable of slashing apart battle cannon shells, you're probably not in a position to start trading blows with the thing. And due to their exceptional sharpness, the bone swords do not give a lick about any kind of protection, as the Swarmlord is able to chop his way through entire squads of Terminators with very, very little problems, as he demonstrated during the battle for the polar fortress of Macragge. There is, however, one small little drawback. And that is that since the Swarmlord is the second in command of the entirety of the Tyranid Hive fleet, should it die during a battle, die temporarily at least, the impact it will have on the rest of the Tyranid army in the field will be absolutely catastrophic. If a Hive Tyrant dies, he will send the nearest few hundreds or thousands of Tyranid organisms into a state of panic or see them return to their animalistic instincts. Alright, that's certainly annoying and tactically very disadvantaged for the Tyranids, but it's not a catastrophe. There is always another synapse creature somewhere relatively nearby that can move in and extend its influence over the wayward hordes, or another one can simply be spawned with relatively little problem or excessive use of resources. If a Swarmlord, however, dies, well, the Swarmlord is the overall commander of all Tyranid creatures on the battlefield, including the synapse ones. With the Swarmlord there, the Hive Tyrants connect to the Hivemind through the Swarmlord. Yeah. So if the Swarmlord goes down, it's not just the Termagants that are going to start freaking out. Every single Tyranid organism, from the Rippers to the Bio-Titans to the Hive Titans, the Carnifexes, Titans, that'll be awful, Hive Tyrants, etc., everything will lose its mind for an extended period of time. And the psychic shockwave as well, along with the sudden severance of the connection to the hive mind, can be outright lethal for many of them. This makes the Swarmlord a theoretically tempting target, but unless you can drop a null weapon on its arse, you're probably better off just killing the little ones and then dealing with the enormous 4-armed titan thing wandering through your lines instead, as you'll probably expend less ammunition killing the horde than you're going to be using on the Swarmlord. Well, unless of course you're a named character, in which case head right for the giant's blinking weak spot. See, this is an issue not just with 40k, to be fair, but with modern day entertainment as a whole. We just don't treat our villains with any respect anymore. We keep treating them as disposable stepladders for the heroes, rather than as a key core component of the setting. You cannot have stakes. You cannot have investments in a series, in a superhero, unless he has an equally dangerous super villain. If the Swarmlord is just a joke that gets his ass kicked every time he shows up, well, it's cool once, it's cool twice, hey, it might even be cool thrice. But the fourth time your named character beats the shit out of the biggest bad in the galaxy, the one and only Swarmlord of a species more ancient than the entirety of human civilization, you start to realize that maybe they're not really all that much of a threat at all. And once you start thinking that, there's an awfully short distance until you start just not giving a crap at all. Anywho, before I wander off on a philosophical tangent, I will wrap it up there. Until next time, thank you all very much for watching. I have been Arch, and I hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.